right now, professionals making decision on the basis of their education, experience, and intuition.
Yeah.
But in their daily job, they are missing data-driven decisions. Because imagine a lot of therapists from old school side now kill me after this, but it's true.
Yeah.
That imagine that you are going to cardiologist and without having tests, measurements, whatever, they making decision, just watching you and say and talk to you and say, let's try this or let's try that.
Yeah.
That's why effectiveness of therapy stayed the same during the last 40 years.
Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. My name is Dirk-Jan Upkes, and on this podcast I give the women who work in tech the platform they need to inspire and empower each other. Join me on a journey into the world of entrepreneurship, funding, biases and role models to discover the strategies for success in the tech industry. In other words, how women can disrupt tech. Are you ready to listen? Hey, welcome back to Women Disrupting Tech. Thank you for listening to episode 83 and happy 2025. I hope you're feeling energized and inspired as we start this new year together. Today's episode is about artificial intelligence, mental health, and psychotherapy. Now, AI lacks human consciousness, so that may sound like an impossible combination. But today's story will change your mind, because we're going to explore how technology, AI in this case, can actually make therapy more human, not less. At the heart of our story is Sestive, a company born out of a deeply personal journey that starts in Armenia in 1988. When Diana Oganesian was 5 years old, she witnessed a devastating earthquake. After that, she also watched her grandfathers fall into a deep depression. It would take them almost a decade to find the right therapy. And this experience gave Diana a passion for the topic of mental health. Fast forward to 2025 and the rise of online therapy and technological advancements like AI. These developments gave Diana a clear path to improving psychotherapy. And when she met an old friend, her new startup Sestive was born. In this episode, we go on a journey in the world of psychotherapy and mental health. We'll discover the power of a good conversation, what prevents even the best therapists from curing their patients, and how Sestive can help them with AI-powered insights. Plus, we'll discover how founding a company and starting a family have more in common than you'd think. So when you're ready to listen and learn how Sestive is using AI to transform therapy and improve mental health outcomes, please welcome to Women Disrupting Tech, Diana Oganesian. Hey, good afternoon to you, Diana. Good to have you. Question I always ask at the start of the podcast is how you got into your current job and or current position. Floor is yours.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me, and it's my pleasure. And actually, I'm serial entrepreneur, and this is my fourth company, and I exited the previous ones. And the last one, I decided to sell the company actually because I understood that I'm finally ready to be in a mental health. Because mental health, like the importance of mental health, I understood maybe when I was 5 years old. When the earthquake in Armenia happened in Gyumri, at that time the name of the city was Nennakan and Spitak, two cities damaged in 1988. And I was my grandfather's daughter, let's say,
Yeah.
he was very active. He was military officer all his life, and his hobby and passion was gardening, and he was my happy place, this garden himself, and he was the person who taking me to the kindergarten back, and we have our time, so he was my friend. Because my parents were too young when I appeared in their lives.
Right.
So, and when earthquake happened, I left with my mother and grandmother to Yerevan, to capital, and men stayed there to help with all the crazy damage happened.
Yeah.
And then when I was back, maybe in 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
I understood that my grandfather changed drastically. Like it was like different, totally very sad, very inactive, very emotionally absent person. And it lasts for 7 years. So imagine when I was 5 and I was later like 13, 14.
Yeah.
No, like maybe even 9 years. And only thing that helped him, because he was taking medicine,
Mm-hmm.
etc., that talking therapy. We eventually had a specialist in Armenia. They came from the US, and we managed to convince him to go
Mm-hmm.
to. And eventually he came back, but not with the head of medicine and antidepressant, like all these drugs and stuff, but with talking therapy. When I was in uni, and it was the time when mental health in the Russia was not so popular, and I graduated the uni in Russia. And then I ended up in the businesses. I launched creative agencies, stream parks, and I was doing business, created new stuff, enjoying my life. I'm happily married with 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I even started my PhD in behavioral economics, very, very related to mental health, behavior, and social patterns, etc. And a couple of years ago, I understood that I started to read a lot about all the mental health talking therapy stuff. And I understood that there are a lot of problems that new technology could really be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood that I have certain power, experience, and maybe something else, maybe motivation
Mm-hmm.
to help more people as a business person, as an entrepreneur. And that's how the story of Sestive actually begins.
Okay. So let's go back to 1988, that
Mm,
earthquake. So you moved to Yerevan with your mother and your grandmother, if I understand.
correct, correct.
Tell me what was the impact on the family of that, of the move, but also of the how did it impact? Why did your grandfathers also become so sad?
Imagine the situation when, like, the population of Gyumri at that time was around 200,000.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it was second city because Armenia is a very small country.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine then 25,000 died.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I even haven't mistaken, 80% of city just really, it was disappeared with ruins because of very good construction of the Soviet Union, like, period. By the way, all buildings stayed for 100, 150, and all the Soviet Union construction, this like very high buildings, which is not allowed in that region at that time. So imagine we were lucky enough that nobody from our close family died.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very rare case, really very rare. So we are really lucky. But imagine that all the colleagues, friends of friends, kids of friends, and they helping work was there's no other help. They literally pulling out bodies, pulling out part of the bodies, the people you know, you love, and being support system for your friends, for your relatives. And it's crazy. It drastically impacted my father also, but he was young, and maybe. And the second thing that previously my grandfather had a problem with Soviet Union government because of his beliefs, and he was
Mm-hmm.
pulled out, like taken out of the military system 5 years before I appeared in this world.
Uh-huh.
And it was the job of his life. And he was like he was in air forces, and
Mm-hmm.
he was so important for him. He was in the military from his 16 years old, like starting. And I think it was also the effect, because I read literally like a couple of days ago, I finished a book about post-traumatic syndrome.
Yeah.
And that if something happened in your life, like as a trauma, and then another trauma came in a period of 10 years, it is a replication effect. It's a scientific, like a proven
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Okay.
That's why maybe my grandfather was, because first his job of his life, his passion, and second, his city. He adored Gyumri. He was from Gyumri. Also, he spent part of his life in Russia because he's military and so
Yeah.
like, and he was moving from like all this life and came back to Gyumri 15 years before the earthquake happened. And then first with his job, second with the city he loved, the people he loved, all his
Yeah.
networking gone, his garden gone, his garden also gone.
Yeah. Also, so it's sort of trauma and or stacked on top of each other.
Yeah,
Yeah, which is, yeah, I can
yeah.
imagine would trigger PTSS.
And he kind of course, with his grandchildren, etc., stayed, and they maybe this was the motivation he came back to us. But this is I think this is the trigger.
And he went to the US for a
No, no, no,
cure.
no. I didn't know that, but I discovered literally the book from Cambridge about Armenia health care and mental health disaster,
Mm-hmm.
and it was that from the US diaspora. And thank you to those people. Group of CBT psychotherapists
Uh-huh.
came to Armenia because at that time only 8 professionals were able to provide mental health care in Armenia in 1988 because in Soviet Union there was no talking therapy,
No,
zero.
yeah.
All psychologists there were researchers. I don't
Yeah.
know what it means, like without any practice,
Yeah.
but it is the data I took from that book, and then I checked it,
Ah.
and and they were coming for 10 or 15 years,
Hmm.
switching with each another, and also they started to with education. They have courses, workshops, and cooperation with government. By the way, yes, the Armenian government part of Soviet period, they understood the importance and start the cooperation with those professionals. I'm not sure, actually, nobody remember in my family who was exactly the professional help my grandfather, actually. And also family helped a lot, by the way. Because my father and my uncle, they understood that medicine not helping, let's say, and they start to involve him in a job, involving him in a family business. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't want, they push him
Yeah.
drastically because he was suicidal. He attempted to suicide a couple of times, but I didn't know that. My grandmother told me a couple of years ago. Yeah, that's part,
Well,
like,
how did that make you feel?
I knew that for a certain extent. So yeah, I understood my grandfather because I imagine losing all your job. Imagine I will not able to do business anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It will kill me, I think, for a certain extent. Because in Soviet Union, when you pulled out of the structure, doesn't matter what structure or you are teacher or you are a military or whatever, you know that in the Soviet Union it was not allowed to do any business. Like you cannot do anything. And
Mm-hmm.
he was very entrepreneurial, my grandfather, but he could not do anything else. And he was a teacher in a school of this military some subject. I don't know, I mean, to be honest, what exactly it was, but he was like once or twice a week he went to some school, and this was it. After Soviet Union collapsed, he started to do, after he came back, he was making at home with my grandmother a special meat snacks
Uh-huh.
or something, and sell it in the shops, like, as a
Yeah.
and it was he was very good at this, by the
Yeah.
way, very successful. But in Soviet Union, when it collapsed, imagine very active young, like 40 something man, very young,
Yeah.
and capable to do a lot of things, like pull out of the army. Why? Because it was very interesting. By the way, very interesting story. Airplane from the Turkey, because we have a board with Turkey.
Yeah.
They mixed the airport somehow with the two airports in Lennakan, Gyumri, and airports in another city, Kars, a city that now in the territory of Turkey. And then instead of landing in Kars, they landed in Gyumri.
Hmm.
And my grandfather was a senior at that time, the team who was tracking the air
Yeah. Yeah.
space at that time. And he understood that it is not a military airplane. And he made a decision to contact with them and ask them to land and then blocks them.
Yeah.
And according to according to guidance, he should make a decision to eat it, to and to kill people. And it was approximately 200 people on board. And when I talked to him, when he died when I was 18, I said, grandfather, do you regret? Because it was your career, it was your life. Frankly speaking, because according to guidance, you should do it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's order. He said, no, I knew that it's not military board, and I didn't want to kill people.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no, I am not. I am okay. It was very hard for me, the hardest time in my life, but I would do the same now.
Yeah.
Especially by knowing that it's 200 people on board,
Mm-hmm.
So he saved a lot of lives, frankly speaking.
Yeah. And then he sort of, well, for lack of a better word, got punished.
Yes.
By being excluded from the system.
And he was lucky. He was lucky because because his friends helped him a lot. Because eventually, frankly speaking, because it was already the Soviet Union, no, because frankly, he should be sent to Siberia for this.
Okay, well, that's interesting. I want to move a bit to how psychotherapy then resolved the issue. Because you discovered that through the American diaspora of Armenians. They came into, they came into Armenia to help the government solve the problem. Did your grandfather then have a specific therapy, or was just the fact that someone started talking to him in addition to him having something meaningful to do during the day a solution?
No, it is very interesting because it's very different opinions in my family regarding this.
Huh?
And I have very different opinions about everything with my parents, so it's okay for us. But anyway, because my opinion, because I was like teenager and not a baby anymore, that it helped him a lot because I saw that week by week that he changed. No, they didn't say anything to do between, or at least I do not know about this. But it's how actually therapy worked. If it's not CBD by psychoanalyst, I don't know. I'm not aware about the particular method.
No.
Because I was, but my family sure that the point that they involve him in family business helped him much more than a therapy. But I know the relations and I know the chemical and all the paths between my family members. And I'm sure that, of course, everything matters, but therapy had a very drastic effect. Maybe to rethink about the priorities, maybe understand where it's coming from. Because myself, I used to be in therapy for 6 years. I wanted a lot of things coming from childhood to be resolved. And then it was a decision when I was 32. I was ready finally to go to a therapy. And I really enjoyed the process of 6 years because I kind of know myself much better, what I want. And maybe that's the reason I courage enough now to say that I have something new to say in the therapy world without being a therapist. Of course, I have a professional board. Of course, the professionals involved. But I think it's coming from that part of my life also.
Okay, switching gears a bit.
Yes.
Towards, actually fast forwarding in this case to today. You help therapists do a better job, essentially. Can you describe the average day of a therapist as you see it? Or as you maybe also experienced it when you had therapy yourself?
No, when I have therapy myself, of course, it's closed door. You're coming for 40 something minutes and go, or you connect online because as I'm traveling a lot all my life, it was combined therapy. And I prefer online, to be honest, myself, because I hate to waste time.
Okay.
And actually, according to World Health Organization already, there is no difference online or offline. If you are adult and you have depression and anxiety, there is no difference. So if you want to save your time, you can do it online. Of course, with a proper specialist you rely on. So coming back, the average day, I would say average week, because it's easier to describe. As far as I know, and I know a lot, frankly speaking, Usually therapists, they should need to have a supervisor, and its supervisor is a experienced colleague, peer, who guide you, and you have to, you like obliged to discuss once a week
Mm,
all your for if you are beginner, all your cases, like almost all your cases. If you are not, the problematic cases with your peer, with your supervisor.
mhm,
And it's also, and you should prepare for yourself for this. You should prepare special another summaries of your therapies clients,
mhm.
and it's another like work to do between the therapy or whatever. It's time consuming, it's very time
Yeah.
consuming. Second thing, you have to have your own therapist. It's different from supervisor, because your own therapist for yourself as a human beings, as a therapist. And you should also have time once a week to go to a therapy. And this person should be different from the person who are your supervisor. A very experienced therapist, because they are in different countries, different, they have to have a certain hours of to be in therapy themselves. So if you are a very experienced therapist, you can, for a certain extent, stop your own therapy, temporary or permanently. So they should find time for their own therapy and for supervision. If for their own therapy, they should not do anything like they just go and talk. Eventually, depends on the methodology, of course, but
Mm,
for the supervision, they need to have a couple of hours at least to be prepared for the supervision. Usually, therapists, it's very different, but usually therapists, they have from 5 to even 9 sessions per day. Honestly speaking, I cannot understand how to do 9 sessions, even 8 sessions per day, because even I'm having interview, like when we discussed just
yeah.
a job, not a problems. I'm so tired at the end of the day. I
Yeah.
rarely recall anything from my first meetings during the day, and they are having these sessions. Of course, for the sessions they need to be prepared. But imagine 9 sessions per day and how to be prepared.
And
And
then
imagine that.
also having to prepare for the be prepared for the
Yeah, yes,
supervision discussions,
yes.
and having to make time for for your own
Themselves.
therapy.
They should eat. They should like
Yeah.
an own therapy, and they should also they like should have a rest.
Yeah.
And imagine that a therapy lasts 40 minutes, like 40-45 usually, and
Yeah.
they have 15 minutes to make summaries,
Yeah.
maybe take a have a coffee
Yeah.
eventually, and to rest, etc. And that's why right now, that last year, and it's drastically changed after the COVID,
Mhm.
and they have two opinions that it's only like COVID, that loneliness, because the main problem of the European and the US countries particularly is loneliness. It came first as a problem of mental
Mhm.
health.
Yeah.
And COVID, of course, after the COVID, this drastic change happened, that from 5 to 8. And why they are taking it? I asked a couple of therapists, is it money you are taking this amount of sessions? And what are, well, you can say, no, I don't want to have more sessions. And our therapists, they say, the demand is so high, and there are so many people we need to help, because we need to help, because we
Yeah.
came into this profession to help. And if you see the case with the teenager who is really struggling, and you help him, you say, okay, I will do it. Okay, I will do it. But last year in the USA, we have 45% of therapists who face burnout. Can you
Yeah.
imagine? And it's like, ha ha ha, therapy says, no, they're human beings. They try
Yeah.
to help, and they are human beings. Come on. When you go, where dentist cannot help himself to do it
No.
all it, right? It's the
No.
same. What's the difference? Because you need to have somebody to help you mentally. Doesn't matter that they are therapists. It's a very important thing to understand and appreciate their work.
Yeah. It's also probably why they have therapy themselves,
Yes,
to
exactly.
at least have some sort of outlet where you and I can go to. I go to the gym.
Yeah.
Some people walk, some people talk a lot, but yeah.
Yes, and there are two reasons actually. One,
Mm,
of course, to for certain access and for currently daily problems, to just speak out something and have professional help. Another more important thing, that a therapist should not have blind spots in a problems by himself,
mm,
because if he have some blind, not spoken up spots with his own therapist, unconsciously he
yeah.
will project those problems to his clients,
Yeah.
and this will gonna be a disaster,
Yeah.
honestly speaking.
Yeah.
So this is the second reason why they are going to a therapy.
Okay. So it's fair, I guess, to say that therapists are really overloaded in terms of caseload. How does this impact patients? Because there's in part what we just talked about, that if the therapists don't have their own therapy, they start to project their own blind spot and biases on their patients, which is essentially what you don't want. But also, I can imagine there are other, let's say, negative outcomes, or maybe positive. But
Actually, if it's a professional therapy, that the main problem from patient point, I would say start from the beginning, because in all countries,
hmm,
like Switzerland, Netherlands, Armenia, and USA,
yeah,
you know, this is a big problem to find your proper specialist. It is
hmm,
sensitive, and usually it's network. But the problem is, we as a human beings have two different biggest schools of like talking therapy, let's say. It's a psychoanalysis. It's different, totally different approach. And it's different approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy and many, many, many others, like 400 different.
hmm,
Can you imagine? And
yeah,
usually what is the problem? Depends on the problem. Depends really on the problem. All the methods are really works. Depends on the problem. You should take this method or that method.
yeah,
But different therapies usually they not combining. They usually taking one school or another. And if your problem, you end up in a different methodology, either it will not work, or and you will so dissatisfied. You say, "Oh, therapy doesn't work," but it's not therapy doesn't work, but the method is not for yourself. It's the
yeah,
first problem. Second problem, so you are going where your friend are going, for instance, but maybe his problem, most probably your problem,
yeah,
are not the same. Second thing is to find the proper therapist from human being chemical
yeah.
cooperation perspectives,
Connection wise,
connection wise. And this is the second problem. And if you are lucky enough, honestly lucky enough, to end up in a proper methodology and proper therapist, you will be fine. So right now, honestly, we are speaking also because we are a tool for therapists, but we are not connecting them with each other because it's very hard to do. And eventually online, that's why a lot of platforms who connected people with therapists, they have a lot of court cases now because of this problem. And the third problem, that during those sessions, and usually the window is once a week or twice a week if you are in a very bad place now,
yeah,
therapists that do not have time to give a proper therapy progress feedback because there is no tool for that. They
hmm,
are talking and stopping, and there is between you and you. Imagine, like you,
yeah,
it's approximately 20, 30 people coming and going.
yeah,
And 40% of people dropping therapy, if you start, etc., they drop in therapy because they do not have proper therapy progress feedback. And therapy is working like this, that you are feeling sometimes you're satisfied, sometimes, but it's part of the process. And if you don't have some tools that we saying you where you are, and therapists don't have time to do it, you will drop it. And this is the main problem.
yeah. So people don't know where they are in the journey, in the therapy
Yeah.
journey.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting actually, because I would think that's sort of a standard part that you really have to feed back to customers, or
No,
to
no,
clients.
it's not customers. That's the point. That's the point. For them, when I talk to them, why you're not giving the feedbacks? They say,
Hmm?
we're talking, we say talking and giving feedback, but they are giving feedback on the fly now. But they never, rare of them, giving
So
feedback from
they can.
biggest time perspectives.
Okay, so they actually face the problem that they cannot oversee the journey themselves. So as a result,
Correct.
they cannot give the feedback.
Yeah,
Maybe they
correct.
can
And
say,
that's the
"Yeah,
biggest
I understand
problem.
you feel bad, but that's part of the journey." Yeah, that's essentially what I do not want to hear
Yes, and
as a
that,
patient.
yeah, yes, and that's why we right now also thinking about that problem, how to
Hmm,
help therapists
hmm,
without wasting, like not wasting, taking more from his time to be helpful, giving to a client proper therapy progress feedback to the confirmation of therapist.
yeah,
But because usually people say therapy is ongoing between the sessions, not during,
yeah,
because you process this information. And if you have this concern, if it's working, if it's not working, not working, you will not pass this journey
Yeah.
to be more effective for
Yeah.
you.
Okay. So how can tools like AI help in this?
Actually, it's very important question because it's not only about AI, because AI is a buzzword now
Mm-hmm.
and it's very cool, good, like it's blowing mind
Yeah.
technology. But we forget sometimes that we are dealing with the people.
Yeah.
For us, it's from two sides of the screen, let's
Mm-hmm.
say. And for me, psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, whatever, we can name it. Right now, professionals making decision on the base of their education, experience, and
Mm-hmm.
intuition.
Yeah.
But in their daily job, they are missing data-driven decisions. Because imagine a lot of therapists from old school bill side now kill me after this, but it's true. Imagine that you are going to cardiologist and without having tests, measurements, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
they making decision, just watching you and say and talk to you and say, like let's try this or let's try that.
Yeah.
That's why effectiveness of therapy stayed the same during last 40 years. It's proven scientific. Nobody want to talk about it. But it's 60 to 62% worldwide. Effectiveness of talking therapy is great.
Yeah.
But it haven't been changed like during last 40 years since 1980s. And this because you come and talk, they write something on the base of their memory and
Yeah.
then making decision and then rarely coming back to this because in certain schools they think that what we remember we need to remember, what we don't it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit
That's
conservative
yeah. It's not
because
necessarily true, let's say.
imagine with their overload, like the amount of job they have to do, they're human beings. So coming back to AI, and when we say AI not or something, for me it's not. It's cool to have AI to have transcripts, but it's not only transcripts because a lot of tools are doing AI notes. But first of all, it's a particular way the notes should have been done to have emotional also information, to have verbal information, to take into consideration the replication of the words, and it's also top level. The second, what AI can do, and we are doing with it, that psychotherapists, they don't have time to go through the summaries, but psychotherapists have time to ask questions. Starting from how many kids this certain patient have, we helping them to think more with Sestive, not instead of them, but
No.
think more, ask questions. And
Yeah.
we're also helping patient asking questions to Sestive. Because when you
Ah.
go out, for instance, my questions like, what was my initial problem? How my vocabulary changed? That nobody can say, even therapists can say me this. How many times, it's not me, but for some of our cases, how many times do I pronounce Bitcoin during last session?
Yeah.
Also, the patients start to think.
Mm.
Or the very simplest thing, they usually forget what they wanted to discuss next
Yeah.
session, and 20% they disappointed. I forgot to talk about this. It was so important, but I forgot.
Yeah.
And right now, also Sestive helping them, saying you should discuss this. If you don't want, you just like skip it.
Yeah.
But we helping them in those. So AI, and for us, AI is one of the tools because we are creating the
Mm-hmm.
space
Yeah.
when therapists in his daily life can be more hacked,
Yeah.
effective, and informed.
And can they, as a result, also better listen into conversations?
It's a very interesting point. Very interesting point. Controversial because we have place when you can even you can write because you can
Yeah.
scan and put it into the system,
Okay.
and we have place when you have points from previous sessions that you
Yeah.
want to discuss near your screen as a therapist.
Yeah.
Some of them off it, like close it, because they are disturbing them. Some of them, they're keeping it. The new generation of therapists, they keeping it. The new generation of therapists, they like saying that this helped them. The old generation of therapists say, if I know that Sestive is doing it instead of me, sometimes my brain switched off. So I don't know. It's very interesting, by the
Yeah.
way, point. And for me, and even in switch off, they can recall it and ask questions. But for me, it's I'm not ready to answer you data proven
No.
that how it helped and how it like. I mean, it helped definitely. But it's interesting as we know that Gen Z, etc., different type of working ethics now in like IT world. It seems that therapists are the same. They're really different generation of therapists now.
Yeah, it's. I think if I hear you correctly, it's also part of the fact. Like I grew up in and you also, I think, partly at least, grew up in a time where there was no internet. And
Definitely, I'm 41.
well,
I'm
I got
41.
my first computer when I was in my early 20s,
I got my
and my
computer when I was
first email
16. Yeah,
address when I was 23.
and I was
And I was
15.
way, 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 way
Yeah.
ahead of most people,
Yes,
because when I
correct.
came back to school, I've got an email address. Most people were like, "What the heck is that?" So we both experienced the world without internet, and I think the newer therapist either learned about technology really early on in their life, or it was just there, and that I think that really changes the frame of mind that people have and the approach that people have towards technology.
Yeah. Yes, it's really different, and you know that my belief that eventually human beings will invent new methodology in therapy. Honestly, because nor CBT nor psychoanalysis work in for work. It's like intuition. It's got like it. I just feel in it. You know, so to a certain
Mm.
extent that for modern human being, that like new generation, they should be inventing something else, and it will be for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, and its approach are different because you know we my feeling that like might not again data that 20% of the therapists they
Hmm.
are very okay because they really feel that something needed to be more effective and face the mental health crisis.
Yeah.
Another 20% they hate, they just you know cannot
Yeah.
stand the news something like at all,
Yeah.
and another like the rest 60 they're you know thinking right now
Yeah.
what to do, where to go, and it's very interesting period by the way.
Yeah, isn't that also part of a generic cycle of adoption anyway? So you first get to the first 1%, then the first 10%, and once you've gotten, that's what I learned recently, once you've gotten past the first 25%, it sort of becomes the new normal.
Yes, definitely, because they're opinion owners, they are leading. And by the way, definitely I right now reading the book The Anxious Generation.
Uh-huh.
And I definitely recommend everybody and to parents to give like give a chance to this book and
Yeah.
to read it through because it's data driven again. It's not and not assumption, nothing, and it's very interesting to understand how our kids are like think, why the like it's very interesting book.
Yeah.
I do really
I'll
recommend it to everybody.
let's include a link in the show notes then.
Okay. Oh yeah.
So, um, I was wondering, because there's clearly a lot of upside for therapists, but there's also a fair bit of resistance. What are the, let's say, what are the concerns that therapists and maybe also patients have with Sestive?
Interesting thing that when we started this story, me, my team, my co-founder, we really thought that by the time that it will be harder for us to convince people to go online
Hmm.
because we haven't known by that time that already 55 of the therapy sessions went online. Second, of course, they have concern with their privacy. It's really like it's fair enough,
Yeah.
and that's why, of course, we are GDPR and HIPAA compliant. And but the problem is that, and also we are not recording nothing. We just transcripting and minimizing it
Mm.
on like online during the conversation,
Uh-huh.
and we have so like and all the security measures because we save the data like the different places, the key and the data, and
Mm.
the name and surname connected to them in the profile. And
Yeah.
so, if in certain cases, and somebody cracked some server because we are keeping it the most secure place. Like it's a Microsoft, it's a secure, the most secured, like technology secured possibly way. It's not possible to understand like the data and crack the data. But of course, it's there are concerns that my data, blah blah blah, and it's fair. But you remember what I recalled recently? I did post about this in LinkedIn two months ago, I think. I remember when to Russia and Armenia credit cards came, everybody was concerned. Oh, bank gonna see my private data, how I paid, where I pay, blah blah blah. Right now, it's a part of the normal, and everybody knows the security of the banks, that it's a big concern, etc. I'm sure that, of course, it's for me, for my team, and we have a big security and legal like teams. This is our biggest part of our daily life.
Yeah.
But eventually, this make your mental health, your process way more effective.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people already went online, already doing their psychotherapy online. And it's going to be part of the normal, because right now, even psychotherapists, because they are not very technical like people, they don't know what is AI. They don't imagine what is AI. AI for them something from Terminator like movie, something very
The
scary.
Matrix.
And that's why we are part of our job also to talk with them, and eventually our mission is invent a new technology and use any new technology to make mental health better. And the second, I am sure that as at least how we are now as a human beings, therapy should be involvement of two human beings, and AI is a tool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important also to stress that it's a human conversation and it stays human. But
100.
yeah, I was in a meeting yesterday, also about how AI can help, and that was really interesting. The fear of AI is mostly in the fact that AI takes over our lives, and I'm more of the school like, okay, but we can influence that. That we should put guardrails around, and we can do that as human beings. So we can influence how AI helps us, but that's only if we see AI as a tool to help us and not as the a sort of religion type of thingy.
I read some book.
Hmm.
I don't recall it now, unfortunately, the name, where it's very interesting. We gathered all the reactions for innovations during different history periods,
Yeah,
and they're more like the same. So it is normal.
yeah,
It is normal, and it's very clear. Just a part of our job who are working with innovations.
yeah. It's
Part of our
about
jobs
it's about
patiently explain.
yeah, it's about man, machine, and innovation. I think it's the book is called. I haven't read it fully myself, but the synopsis of it is indeed people respond the same to innovations all history, whether that's the bike, the steam machine, or AI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So maybe good also to describe a little bit what Sestive really is. Not only what it does, but what it really is. So does it plug into, let's say, your Zoom? Is it one of those AI plugins that you just put in? Or
Initially, when we tested in April, it was a plugin because we just want to understand if we are right or wrong. But I understood that my dear mental health professionals, talking therapy professionals, they need to have a safe space for them where they can keep all the documentation, where they can conduct their sessions. By the way, we're gonna also help with offline sessions since June. Right now, it's an online web-based platform when they can log in. And the interesting thing that I made a decision, we have 300 users like now, but they are all from our community.
yeah,
And because we want to have it mature product where with a real help. And right now, nobody can go to our website, sestive.com, and just log in, because you should have a code and you should know somebody who are using Sestive now,
Yeah.
because that's how we want to make our database and users mature
Hmm.
professionals,
Yeah.
because we really value their opinions now.
Yeah.
And each user can invite only 5 users,
Yeah.
psychotherapists, right now. So if
Hmm.
you want to use Sestive, you should find somebody who are using Sestive, or you can write to me, diana@sestive.com, and I will talk to you and understand, like, if Sestive can help you. And it is platform, working space for therapists, which help him on his own journey during the day. Also, we are having soon the collaborative module with the supervisor,
Hmm.
so they not need to print out some information, go somewhere. They can do it online with the video calls, and that's it. And also sharing some information on the screen, and not printing out some valuable information and take with themselves in their
Uh-huh.
computers, etc. Also, next year is a huge year for us. We are going to launch the wing for clients, because, frankly speaking, right now we don't do anything for clients now. They're just having their video calls
Hmm.
in the lovely interface, which like really motivate them.
Yeah.
But this is it for now. It's working place where therapists appreciated, their time valued, and we just helping them and piloting them in their daily job.
And what is the feedback so far?
It's very interesting. Feedback is much better than I could expect. I don't know if it's good or bad, because I want them to be more pushy. Of course, we have a lot of things, quite a lot of things to change, but they are really, really, appreciated, and they love that really impact their daily lives.
Hmm.
They are in a profession for what they came to a profession.
Yeah.
Their questions are very interesting questions, and even like the cross-checking information. For instance, show me the clients have a problem with their fathers. Do they have like do their past in the psychotherapy similar or no? Their ups and downs. So they requesting a lot of information. So we have to implement the graphical feedbacks as well soon.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
it's interesting, and they are way more data driven than I could expect. So amazing.
So they actually, what I'm hearing you say then is that they lack the tooling
Yes,
to actually.
they requesting information from Sestive,
Yeah.
because we can give them analyze from the particular
Yeah.
patient and through their practice. And I understood that they want much deeper and graphical information.
Yeah.
We are giving now, because we were afraid to not overload them with the
Yeah.
information. And it seems that they know want more. That it's amazing.
Well, that's good. At least that
Yeah.
means that the people who are starting to work with it actually
Yes.
see the benefit of it, the
Yes.
patient side of it. I want to go a bit back in time in the interview and also in history. So when you look at your current solution, Sestive, how would it have helped your grandfathers?
I think,
And would it have
first of all,
benefited?
yes, for sure. But it really helped. I mean, eventually, a video call will help my grandfather.
Hmm.
The internet will help my grandfather, because he would able to do a video call, and find some psychotherapist, not waiting 7 years until somebody will come and
Yeah.
visit him. The first thing. The second thing, he is very curious, and for sure he will co-piloting his therapy by asking sensitive also questions on the basis of his previous sessions. And I think it will be way more faster and effective. And then her recommendation psychotherapist giving him, he memorizing better with Sestive, and will helping him and helping him during the week between the sessions, for sure. So yes, one indeed it will help my grandfather, and I know that he will be proud of me right now.
Sounds like a great place to move to the last question I always have for my guests is I'm on a mission to make DEI in tech the new normal by the end of 2032.
Mm-hmm.
What you sort of are tech native, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
almost. What would be your advice to me to make that happen? To get more women into tech, to get to get men also to accept it?
As I said, I'm grown up in Russia, and I like later work in the USA, in Europe. I'm living. You know, and I'm based in Rotterdam now. For me, Armenia and Netherlands, my two favorite countries in the world. And I would say I was amazed that in Armenia, there are, as I said before, offline, it's like approximately 40% of women are Armenian. And
Yeah,
as I am a very data-driven person, I would recommend us together to understand why,
yeah.
because it's far away like ahead of European countries, and we are not developed country, we are developing. So I think, and maybe you know why, because maybe for lack of people, because it's small country,
Yeah.
for certain extent from the beginning men had to hire women.
Yeah, it's
And
a pragmatic reason. Yeah,
they understood that, amazing results,
yeah.
and I think you are doing amazing job now, and I think we you just, as a data driven persons, need to
Hmm.
understand why and how to convince the rest. Because Netherlands, the Dutch people are also very pragmatic, but for a certain extent it's not work as it should work, I think, now, because I have a lot of stories in Netherlands when I was surprised that
Yeah,
still this gender stuff
yeah.
are
Plays a
there,
role. Yeah.
and I never faced it here, because I right now I'm physically in Armenia.
The idea that it brings to my mind is that Armenia sort of had a new start when it sort of became
Correct,
independent from the
correct.
USSR.
In 1991,
Yeah,
yes,
I think that sort of was a fresh start that, in combination with the fact that, yeah, you had to rebuild the country pretty much from scratch,
yeah,
that gave the necessity to, yeah, really be pragmatic in the sense that, yeah, hey, listen,
yeah,
we can
maybe,
exclude 50% of the population. Maybe that doesn't work that well.
yes,
But
yes,
I'm absolutely into your proposal to find
yes.
out what exactly
My,
happened.
I promise I will organize it.
Okay, good. Well, I'll take you up on that.
Be my guest.
So that's to be continued then. Thank you for
Thank you
this
so much.
wonderful conversation, Diana. I really enjoyed it. If people want to learn more about Sestive and about you, where would you like to send them?
Yes, just yes, visit my LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Really visit my LinkedIn. Yes, and you will see, and contact me diana.sestive.com. Diana@sestive.com. So please,
Okay. We'll
thank you
include
so much.
those links in the show notes.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you
Diana,
so much.
really appreciate it. So, and listeners, thank you very much for listening. All the links are in the show notes. So, until next episode, keep being awesome. Well, that's a wrap for the first episode of 2025. Thank you for listening to episode 83 of Women Disrupting Tech with Diana Oganesian on how Sestive is using artificial intelligence to transform therapy and improve mental health outcomes. Diana and I hope that you've enjoyed our conversation as much as we did. And if you'd like to learn more about Diana Oganesian and Sestive, please connect with her via the links in the show notes. As usual, you can find the show notes at Women Disrupting Tech, all one word, .blog. On the same website, you can also become a member of the Women Disrupting Tech community. Members get early access to new episodes, and you'll learn what I found interesting about them. Plus, you'll be the first to hear when new blog posts related to diversity, equity, and inclusion in tech come online. So check out the show notes for a link. When you're looking for a role model to inspire your own hero's journey in tech, I invite you to follow or subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And if you're a regular listener, please give the show a rating or a review because that way you'll help other people discover this podcast. If you are a male ally and you want to help Diana and the other women disrupting tech make this podcast obsolete by the end of 2032, there's a simple thing you can do. Please share the podcast with friends, family, and coworkers because this way you give Diana and my other guests the platform they need to make it happen. Finally, if you want to connect with me, please reach out via dirkjan at womendisruptingtech.blog or send me a DM on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, just look up my name and you'll find me. With that, I wish you a wonderful day. I hope to see you in the next episode. And until then, Keep being awesome.